Hi, this is Pickles and Necromedes with the Pickles Picks podcast. I'm Pickles, and this is Necromedes the Thrice-Reborn.
Hello there. I am the master of evil and science fiction and fantasy.
And I'm a demon.
You are a unicorn I summoned by accident, and I'm very disappointed.
I could be a demon.
You're not good at it.
I could be.
Gotta butch it up.
Anyway, this is our first podcast, and we're going to be covering Frank Herbert's Dune. Our mark is from 0 to 28 minutes and 50 seconds because we are doing the audiobook from Audible, and we are not actually reading the book. The audiobook has a lot of good features to it, like it does have more than one voice actor, so you don't have one person that's doing a bunch of voices, and it is much more like a radio serial than I think a regular audiobook is. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, very much. So not quite 100% a drama, but very close to it.
So, we start out in Dune, and Paul Atreides is 15 and sleeping when his mother brings in a wise woman to take a look at him. Now, Paul's a very important person. He's from a royal line. His father's a duke, and his mother's one of his concubines. I don't know how many concubines there are, or if Paul has any brothers and sisters. We haven't gotten to that part. But Paul is the heir, and his father has a very important planet to look after. The elder woman that is brought in and Paul's mother are both part of the Bene Gesserits. Bene Gesserits.
Bene Gesserits.
I always say that word wrong, and I'm a very bad person for it. And they're a part of a sect of all women, each with witchy powers. Now, these witchy powers kind of are pulled from, a list. Like some people have.
There's a bunch of powers. There's truth saying, which is the ability to detect whether you're telling the truth, which is why would anybody ever marry someone with the ability to tell
Probably a bad
if you're
idea.
telling the truth? But I guess it's a good idea if you're negotiating with a foreign emissary to say if they're telling the truth or not.
Well, if you're a diplomat, probably a very good idea. But unfortunately for everybody else, probably not a great one.
Then there's, of course, the voice, which is exactly like Star Wars Jedi mind trick. That's where Star Wars got it from. Then there's the ability for each of these women, these Bene Gesserits, to manipulate their bodies at the cellular level. They can counteract poisons. They can reduce the speed of aging. They can select whether they get pregnant and the sex of the unborn child.
Which was where we come to Paul, because Paul was not supposed to be a boy, was he?
That's one of the biggest things about this chapter and about the whole story is that the Bene Gesserit have been trying to create this Kwisatz Haderach through a breeding program. That's their entire purpose and existence. And they're literally one generation away. And Jessica, because of an act of love, screws the pooch and allows her husband to have the son he wants. And that messes up thousands of years of a breeding program.
Yeah, Jessica's not a very popular person because of this, and she's already being brought to task. But the person that she's with does mark the fact that she thinks that Paul is clever before she ever meets him.
Bene Gesserits, they have extremely gifted ability to analyze people and their emotions just by looking at them. It's a witchy ability.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to see whether or not a 15-year-old boy is faking sleep or not.
They have unusual analytical ability that's borders on the magical.
Okay, so we've gotten to the part where Mr. Important Boy is now waking up. His mother has explained to him that this wise woman is part of her order. In fact, she is the Emperor's truth-sayer. So she is a very important person in the universe, not just necessarily on their planet. And she is there to test Paul with her Gom Jabbar.
What the hell's a Gom Jabbar?
Gom Jabbar is a little ring that has poison in it, and it has a little sticky part. And if you cannot complete your task, she sticks you with the pin and you die.
What is that task? Pray tell.
That task is a box of pain.
Oh, I like that one. Necromedes approves boxes of pain.
Well, this is a very special box of pain because what it does is it casts an illusion into your mind. At least that's what my understanding of it is. And it convinces you that your hand is getting hotter and hotter and burning off to the point where Paul believes when he withdraws his hand at the end of his task that he'll just bring out a charred stump where his hand once was. But of course, his hand is fine.
I like to point out that Paul is 15 years old, and most 15-year-olds can't stop themselves from eating a candy bar, let alone stop sticking their hand inside of a box that's buried their hand
so Paul
alive.
is an extremely exceptional young man.
He's like a super being even before. He is learning a whole bunch of different skills. He's a mentat, which is a human computer. He is learning assassination. He learns all about. He's like a super being, even without this Kwisatz Haderach going on.
Yeah, he's like special kid.
And you did not go. They also introduced what's going on politically that's upending his life. These are the last few days of him staying on his home planet of Caladan. He's going to be moving to Dune because they're switching with the Baron Harkonnen. You missed that part, by the way. This is a very, very dense chapter that introduced so many concepts. It's like you're just thrown into the deep end of the pool of the Dune universe.
It really is. Unfortunately, there is a lot of things that I'm not picking up on. I'm having to listen to the chapters more than once, and I'm still not picking up on everything because I'm a unicorn. So, we will be going over this chapter again before we go over our next chapter, and hopefully you will be joining us.
Well, what happens? We haven't gotten through what happens. What happened? You just left us off. He's being tortured by an evil old lady.
Being tortured by an evil old lady, but
to see if he's a human or not.
You're right.
What does that mean? Why would these witches, they call them Bene Gesserit witches, think people aren't humans? That's not very nice.
No, it really isn't very nice. But their idea of a human in this particular context is somebody that can overcome their base urges. Or, their instincts for the most part. Paul puts his hand into a box and it burns. Now, a normal person would take their hand out of the box regardless if somebody had poison, to their neck. Regardless. But Paul doesn't because he's got what a lot of other people are lacking when it comes to self-control.
Yeah, he's a super being. But not only that, the woman, Jessica's trainer, overdoes it with the pain levels.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah, she's supposed to be super controlled, and
she's like, whoops-a-daisy.
Puts it up to 11. She puts the pain up to 11 because she subconsciously wants to see him die.
I guess I wanted you to fail. So it's like it's...
She's so controlled, but can't.
I'm trying to figure out where all her power comes from. Is it because she's head of this order? Is it because she's attached to the Emperor? Because... really, lady?
Well, yeah, that's another point. What if he had failed? How would that they just killed the heir to House Atreides. It's like killing a king's son. The heir. It's how would they get out? How would they explain that one?
I'm still not sure because his mother is a concubine. If there are other concubines or if he has any brothers and sisters, we don't know yet. But it's entirely possible that there are spares to that heir.
Well, there isn't, but spoiler. But there's another thing they kind of throw out there, if you noticed. The Bene Gesserits don't know who their, at least the ones in the breeding program, do not know who their parents
that's kind of weird.
So that's got to come back. That's going to be the loaded gun It's going to come back
Yeah, they
later.
don't know who their parents are. They don't know who the brothers and sisters are. And the entire purpose behind that is that if they wanted to breed somebody to a close family member, instead of making that not a taboo in their particular organization, in their society, but they keep it secret, so it's still taboo, but they can do it anyway, which seems kind of weird to me.
This chapter really was dramatic.
It really was.
It was, well, think about it. He's tested nearly to death, over-tested, put the pain threshold to 11. At the very end, they reveal that he might be the Kwisatz Haderach, this super being, and that in order to find out if he is or not, he's got to go through another test where every single male who has ever tried it has died.
Yeah, but also onto that, it makes me wonder a couple things. Like, let's just say Paul fails. Does that really get rid of their breeding program? Or can she just have another baby?
I assume she'd have another
and then
baby.
have that one be a girl, and then have that girl give birth to the son that anybody's wanted. I mean, there's an awful lot of variables here.
If you think about it from their point of view, these Bene Gesserits, why wouldn't they say, okay, Jessica, you screwed up. Let's just Gom Jabbar the kid. Go for number 2 and get this 1,000-year breeding program back on track. But no. They just let it go on. And I don't know. It seems like that's...
Well, that also makes me wonder if this breeding program had to have that type of timing to it. Was it a generational breeding program, or was it a time-based breeding program, whereas in this such and such year something's supposed to happen? Is Paul going to be too old to be the chosen one?
No, that's not how it works. They've been breeding humans to have certain traits to become the Kwisatz Haderach, the male, to be a Kwisatz Haderach. So, which means shortening of the way, by the way. And
we never explained exactly what that means.
No, but we know that Paul does have dreams of the future that come to pass once in a while. They don't really explain in this chapter what a Kwisatz Haderach is.
No, they don't. The only thing that they've really explained is that the head of the Bene Gesserits.
Jesuits.
See, I keep wanting to call them Bene Jesuits, and I know that that's not right either.
Well, I think it's inspired, their whole ideas, by the Jesuits. That's why they have Jesuit.
I'm mispronouncing in order to not be offensive, and in the meantime completely butchering everything and offending absolutely everyone.
I don't think anybody cares about the Jesuits. The Jesuits maybe, but not the
Jesuits. Yes, the actual people, not the people that are made up.
Well, who knows? There might be. There's Jedi religion now. Why not?
Well, you're right. We could look it up.
Maybe after the Dune movie. So, what is your opinion of the chapter? This really threw you in the deep end. It introduced every major concept in the Dune universe.
Did. And the thing that really got me part of this was the whole memory thing, where the Reverend Mother can access the memories of all of the female ancestors all the way back to the beginning of wherever the beginning was.
Beginning of time.
I know. I mean, like, you would have to have, just a lot of mental power not to keep yourself from going crazy. I mean, are all these memories accessible? Is it something like...
Spoilers for book 2. There's a lot of things coming up.
Okay, there's a lot of things coming up in book 2 that we find out, but not right now.
Actually, that's just later on in the book, actually. We're anticipating.
Okay,
So, do you like it more than you did when you read it 16 years ago, or 30 years ago?
Let's not get into how many years ago it was. It was a very long time ago.
He has a very odd, unique writing style.
Yeah, he does. To me, I remember it being kind of dry. And I don't really remember a whole lot of detailing, but as I said before, what I was reading during this period is not something that I would enjoy now. So I'm taking a look at this as something that I'm looking at with kind of a fresh new outlook because I'm not in the same place that I used to be. I think there's a better chance of me liking it this time around.
The audiobook is exceptional.
The audiobook is exceptional. They do a very good job with all of the voice acting. And it makes it a whole lot easier for me to digest, especially when you're dealing with a whole bunch of new characters thrown together in a chapter. It's easier if the people in the room at least have separate voices so we can pay attention to who's there and who isn't there and who's talking about who. Because even the people that, what would we call them at this point? Third-party people, because we haven't met them yet.
I'm not sure what third-party people are.
It just makes a difference because we know who is connected to who by who talks about who.
I hear you. So what's your overall score rating 1 to 10?
I think my overall score would probably be a 7.5.
What?
I know. Well, it still isn't something that's really captured my attention. It's a little overly dramatic, like...
What, shoving your 50-year-old's hand in the paint box?
Yeah, it's kind of a little melodramatic, honestly. But I do know that is a very small part of this book, and it's just the beginning. And the beginning of this book is it's supposed to be dramatic. I mean, even for the time period, that's how books like this started out, with like, dun dun dun, at the very beginning of it. And then we go along our merry adventure, and they try and fix whatever problem they've got. And we don't even know what's going on with Paul right now. We don't even know his story. The only thing that we know is that this is the first step on a grand adventure that he didn't even know he was really going on, and his mom risked everything. I mean, at this point, his father's a duke. This is screwing with an intergalactic empire.
Well, here's another thing. You got a breeding program. Thousands of years. You get the Quasar Hatter. I think they might have it. And they allow this big change to go to Dune to happen, and they're going to lose control over Paul's whereabouts. He's moving to a new planet with new people. It seems like a very bad idea to let the possible end product of a 10,000-year-old breeding program just to be flitting around in Dune for the first time ever.
Well, we also don't know how these people get around. I mean, is this going to be a big move? Is it a big, giant deal? Or is it just like somebody's going to beam them over and they're going to show up in a shuttlecraft into their new palace and then, just wait for people to show up?
What do you think? Well, given that the first chapter involved a pain box, how do you think he's going to go?
Yeah, something tells me it's going to be a little bit more than just beaming from planet to planet.
So you say it's no Harry Potter, this
No,
dude.
at least not yet. We'll see.
Well, he's the chosen one. He's the boy who lived through the pain box. Okay, I think wrapping up now. See you next chapter.
See you next chapter. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.